you doing? Just getting things set up here, and then we can go. Myself some water. Okay. Second. I hope everyone's doing well. Alright, in today's video and today's session, I want to talk about the benefits of drinking versus the benefits of not drinking. And then I want to cover just two of the I suppose the benefits for myself after so long of not drinking now. And when I look back, what are the biggest benefits that I see? You know, when you first cross that line, when you first got your first few weeks, a few months into the journey, you think about things on a very different level. So once I talk about that, the benefits of drinking, and the final thing that I want to talk about is, so I'm going to talk about memory as one of the benefits for me as a long-term thing, how alcohol affects you short-term and long-term, and the benefits of not drinking in terms of your memory. And then I want to talk about being a better dad, being a better parent, and how that has really I mean, it was one of the reasons why I stopped drinking alcohol in the first place, but just how that has evolved and why it's such a huge benefit for me in my life, why it's played such a huge part, motivation. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. It's really, it helps us out a lot. And we're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen when we get there, but it'd be nice to get there. If you want to ask a question while we're live, then you have to click on that join button down below, and yeah, you can ask away. There's other benefits as well. You can see after you click that live button or click the join button. So the benefits of drinking versus the benefits of non-drinking, of not drinking. You know, a lot of people say, well, there's no benefits to drinking, but we wouldn't drink. You know, we wouldn't drink for so long if there wasn't benefits to it. The point is to see those benefits for what they are, just perceptions. And once you start to dig into the perceptions and you start to dig around in the motivations of why you're doing it, you know, we start drinking because of there's a whole cultural pressure. It's a normality of drinking. By the time we get to 18 years of age, it's almost a foregone conclusion that as soon as you get to 18 or 21 or 23, depending on where you are in the world, that you're gonna step across and go into a bar and get your first drinks. It's like a rite of passage almost, you know. So when you're young, you drink because you don't want to lose face, because you think it's cool, because you're experimenting, and then eventually it becomes a tool in your life. You know, you're using it as a tool for something, as a shortcut. You know, for me, it was shyness. I used it as a shortcut for shyness. Going into bars, felt anxious, tension. I felt uptight about myself, and it helped me to relax. You know. And I think a lot of people use it for that same reason, to help them to get away from that inhibited part of themselves. But there's a reason why some inhibitions are there, you know, especially from a cultural perspective. There's a lot of problems with it if you go out into the world and you're, I mean, you can see it yourself. You know, look back at your own youth and see where that inhibitions got you. And you know, the problem is that it's an instant gratification mindset. It's very short term, and you're always going to be shortcutting your own ability to deal with life. You know, when you're dealing with yourself, when you're dealing with shyness or anxiety or tension or uptightedness or being inhibited through alcohol, you get into that true dependency. So you need alcohol to get back into that state, because you're not learning how to do it without alcohol. Or it could be any drug. It's not just the alcohol. I'm not talking about that. It's dependence as a crutch. So you're dependent on something outside of yourself to change an internal feeling. And that's a big problem. That's where the proper dependence comes from. And, you know, people talk about it from the perspective of dependence on something within the alcohol. You know, and maybe there's something to that, a biological dependence. But most of the dependence is psychological, that you cannot put yourself, you get so used to being in social situations with alcohol that you can't do it without, or you feel like there's something missing. And that's a problem. And eventually you get to that stage where you can't relax without alcohol. There's a problem with relaxing without alcohol. So one of the perceived benefits for me was, I think, one of the perceived benefits that happens, one of the perceived things that happens when when you're drinking, is that you lose the ability to do without the crutch. You know, you can't celebrate without alcohol. You can't socialize. You can't relax. And another part of this is that you get tolerance. There's a certain physical tolerance with the alcohol, and that physical tolerance comes with the damage. The more you drink, the more you can tolerate, and the more you can tolerate, the more you can drink. But it doesn't stop the damage. You know, you're still going to get damaged. Each unit of alcohol is still going to damage you just as much. You know, the tolerance doesn't stop that. So, and another problem is that the world shrinks. You know, your perception shrinks. You know, everything starts to become, starts to revolve around alcohol. You know, and I can't name one part of my life that was better without alcohol. Anything. You know, I remember listening to Billy Connolly a couple of years ago. The old Billy Connolly, who was off alcohol for maybe 25, 30 years. And he said the one thing that he missed was the going into a bar and having the company of other men and just talking about crap. And I suppose, if you know, there's a bit of truth in that, but you know, there's certain things that I miss about my childhood that I can never go back to. There's certain things that I miss about every part of my life that I can never go back to because they're in the past. And that's the only, if there was one thing that I missed about drinking, it would be that aspect of things. And that's nothing to do with the alcohol. That's just the way the society is laid out. I mean, if men did this in coffee shops, then that's what we will be doing, you know. And I believe that was something that they did in the past. So, you know, the habit is always going to take from you. It's not going to give. It never gives from you. It takes your consciousness in the moment. It takes your consciousness in the long term, because it gradually stupefies your brain. It takes away your health. You know, it's a gradual process. As you age, you get a little bit more sensitive to outside toxins. It's just part of the aging process. But also, as you age, the damage that you've done from the alcohol, the damage that you experience through that's also going to cause your organs not to work as well as they should be, even at that age. So that causes you problems as well. Memories, I'll talk about that in a while. That's what alcohol takes a lot of your memories, both in the short term and long term. Friends, I've lost loads of friends from alcohol just because I wanted, the more I drank, the more I wanted my friends to drink. I wasn't interested in friends that didn't, you know, it's like anything else. You're not really interested in friends that don't share the same share the same interests as you. And when your interests contract because of alcohol, then your friends are going to contract as well. Experiences in life, you know, it's one of those things where you're not putting yourself out. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you know. For me, one of the things was decompression. So, you do a stressful job and you finish up the day in a bar because you want to decompress, and you're telling yourself more of this than anything else. But alcohol is part of the compression problem. It's part of what gives you the stress in the first place, gives you the anxiety, and gives you all those different things. Like I said, if you started out by going into a bar because or drinking because you wanted to go into a bar and not feel shy, then you don't ever learn how to become shy, or what you should. You don't get to that level where you should be without the alcohol, that you would have been without the alcohol. So there's a lot of different problems with this. Before I go on to the next topic, subscribe if you haven't already, and join if you want to ask a question. Dan Healy, how you doing, Dan? Good to hear from you. I'm on day 28 of my withdrawal program and doing very well, thank you. However, I'm going on a few days holidays next week, which will be tricky. Any tips? Yeah, I mean, the best thing that you can do for vacations is to plan well in advance. Just don't take it. I mean, most of my vacations when I went on holidays were to do with it was to get drunk. It was the excuse to go and get drunk at 12 o'clock in the day or earlier, to start drinking at that time, not to get drunk, but to have my first beer at 12 o'clock, let's say. And so I think if you can plan it in advance, have it in your head that this is, for a start, it's not going to be a drinking holiday, that you're going to go off and do things. Whenever I go on holidays now, I always have so much to do during the day, either plan stuff or we just go off walking, and we try and find, exploration, that kind of thing. When we go into a coffee shop here, I mean, there's alcohol everywhere here. It's in the supermarkets, in the bars, obviously in the bars, but in the coffee shops, you can find it in the little trucks that are by the side of the road where you buy a tostada or something like that. It's just everywhere. So eventually it gets to the stage where you just don't think about it anymore. But when you're in those early days, day 28, think about how far you've come. Think about what you're gonna, how you're gonna feel at the end of the day when you come back from your vacation, if you've drank, and how you're gonna feel if you don't drink. So you say it's you don't say how many days, or you're going on a few days holiday. Okay, so let's say you're going for a week. You come back and you've got 35 days or 36 days, or you're back to zero again, and starting out the whole process again, because holidays are going to come around every so often. And if you don't get through this one, then you're going to have that same mental, psychological block the next time you go. So when you come back from it and you haven't drank, you get such a buzz from the fact that you went through a time when you would normally drink far more than you would normally drink at home, and you didn't do it. So that gives you a boost. Then it will sort of give you a big motivation and help you to get through the next month and the next 2 months. So that's what it's all about. I mean, at the beginning, we're always motivated by pain, for the pain of whatever it is that forces you to face up to things and to stop. But once you get through that and the pain disappears, then you have to find other motivations. So the biggest motivations can be those targets, like the milestones that you get through. Don't look at it like it's going to be a simple thing. Look at it like it's going to be a hard thing every evening when you would normally want to drink, but you do something else. Go out for a walk, go and explore. Like I said, keep your mind occupied. So it's anything. It's the simple things. Keep doing the same simple things that you've been doing at home, but do them when you're on your vacation. So I hope that helped, Dan. The second part of this now is memories. So for me, everyone says to you, you should stay in the moment. What you do in the moment is what life is. I mean, life is that experience that you're getting in that moment. You know, you can only really experience life in the moment. But what do you do when the moment passes? You know, when every moment is going to pass and it goes into 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, yesterday, last week, last month. Dan was talking about his vacation. You know, my first vacation going away without alcohol was amazing, and I still remember it. But ask me when and where I went on vacation before I stopped drinking. While I was drinking, I have a melting pot of ideas, of vague recollections, but nothing serious. And we did so much on that holiday. It's probably one of the reasons, you know, why. But when the moment passes, that's all you've got. You've got your memories. You know, it was one of the first things that I did after I'd stopped was I pulled out this box of photographs. I don't have them here. Shoebox of old photographs. Now everyone's got the photographs on disc. These were the old-fashioned photographs that you buy the roll of film, you take the photographs, you take them into get developed, so on and so forth, and you have the whatever it is. And I pulled these photographs out, and I couldn't remember half of the stuff that was happening. Most of the stuff, if I'm honest, where I was in the photograph, either on my own or with somebody else, or you know, the most important moments in your life are those times, especially, I mean, the old days when we used to take photographs, and you had to be fairly, you had to be selective, let's say, about what photographs you were taking. You know, so there were photographs of your vacation, of Christmases, birthdays, weddings, special occasions. These are the occasions that you live for, that you work for. You know, these are the things that you want to remember past a photograph. And you want to, you know, pull out a photograph and go, I remember that, you know. When you pull out a photograph, you know, try this. Open up an old box of photographs for yourself and pull them out and say, what do you remember about this occasion? You know, I mean, it will come to you in little, you'll have little bits of memory, but not much. And when you don't drink, you get your memories back, and it's not as if you remember everything about your experiences. I mean, I don't think the memory works like that, but it's much more, you remember a lot more, so your quantity of memory expands, plus your quality of memory. The things that you remember, the colors and the smells and the people that you were with, and all these kind of different experiences. You know, like I said, your experiences with alcohol as a drinker, they start to revolve around alcohol. You know, if you take something very simple like a meal, you know, every meal, especially when we go out, revolves around alcohol. Or something a bit more complicated like what Dan was saying, going out on a vacation. You know, vacations are meant to be relaxing, to be rejuvenating, to be time that you spend with your family. It's what we work for, as I said, all the way through the year. And instead, when you're a drinker, you come back from your vacation needing another vacation because you're so fucked up, you know, because you've gone to bars and you've just filled yourself with poison instead of relaxing and do the things that you should have been doing. So, you know, it's a lot of people say about the youth as well that, you know, it's okay when you're youth, when you're young, you can handle the alcohol a lot better, you know, and your body can, you know, you can handle it. You can handle the hangovers, you can handle the alcohol, maybe not the amount of alcohol, you know, I think I was reading something that 90% of the violence in the world is caused by young men under the age of whatever, 35 or something. I can't remember the exact figure, so don't quote me on that. But how much of that is alcohol fueled? But at what cost? You know, when they get older, and you know, long-term damage, short-term memory loss. There's a thing called Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, wet brain syndrome, where you can't remember what happened to you 5 minutes ago. So you can have a conversation with somebody, ask you 5 minutes later what the conversation was about, and you won't remember it. And this is something that 50%, I think, of people need to be hospitalized for in care, long-term care, because they can't do shit for themselves. And this is all alcohol. And it's not just something that falls off a cliff that you all of a sudden get. It's a gradual decline. You know, like I said, I keep saying on this channel that alcohol is one of the few things that gets into your brain pure, neat, and that's swimming around your brain. Your thoughts are basically chemical reactions. So imagine that the alcohol is going in and interfering with all these chemical reactions. Now, once you stop drinking alcohol, it's a gift that you give to yourself. You know, as I said, my first holiday, my first Christmas, I was so nervous coming up to that first Christmas, but I remember everything in relative terms. I have a great long-term memory now and a great short-term memory now. Yeah, no problem, Dan. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to the channel. If you want to ask a live question, then click on the join button down below. The third part of this is, for me, I started out this whole journey just trying to, I was ashamed about the person I had become as a dad, and trying to be a better dad. That's all I wanted to be, was a better dad. And I thought that there was one way of doing that, and that was to stop drinking alcohol, among other reasons, but that was one of the major motivations. So if you want to be a better dad or a better parent, stop drinking alcohol. And there's 3 reasons. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons I can give you, but the first one is responsibility. And, you know, hindsight is a great thing. You know, when you are outside of a habit and you can look back at what you were doing before, you can see things from not from a place of not guilt, but a place where you're not doing the behavior anymore. So it makes it a little bit easier to look back and to say to yourself, well, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, but look at what I was doing. You know, it's, while you're doing it, it's a bit of ego protection sort of thing. It's, you know, you're trying to protect yourself from yourself. You're trying to protect your a bit of pride in it, or whatever it is, you know. But there's that. We don't want to hear bad news about ourselves. We don't want to hear that we're doing something stupid. So that's where all the rationalizations come in. Once you stop doing something, you can stop the rationalizations. It's like the conflict. We talk about the conflict inside, that there's, your body only looks at alcohol in one way, and that's as a toxin. You look at it in a way of, like we were saying earlier on, relaxation, socialization, celebration, whatever it is. You're looking at this from a rationalization point of view. Your body only looks at it as from the perspective of, this is a toxin and I have to get rid of this as long as I can. So that creates an internal conflict that doesn't disappear ever as long as you're a drinker. And it only disappears when you've stopped drinking alcohol, and you know that you're not going to go back. I mean, if you're stopping drinking for a little bit and you sort of on the hedge whether you're going to go back or not, it might wane a little bit, but it's still there. It's only when you stop and you say to yourself, I'm never going to do this. This is it now, and I feel like this is my new life. This is the new person I'm going to be. Then that conflict disappears. So then you can see your past from a different perspective. You know, I often say this to my clients, is once you get to 6 months, 7 months, you look back at your time, at yourself as a drinker, with much more kindness, because you've put some distance between yourself. It's very difficult to do that in the earlier days, for whatever reason. You know, there's a lot of different psychological reasons that we have. There's guilt, there's regret, all of these kind of things that are difficult to get away from. It's almost like you have to go through a certain grieving process, or a period of grieving, before you can truly put it in the past, put yourself in the future, and start living a different life. So, and remember, this is not in the behavior. this is not in the person, it's the behavior, it's the thing that you're doing. So, and once you can see that about yourself, that it's not in you personally, that it's in the thing that you're doing, then it becomes a lot easier to do this without judging yourself. So, they often say that the best time to stop drinking alcohol was 20 years ago. Second best time is now. And for me, that's the same thing with my son. Best time I could have stopped drinking alcohol was when he was born, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I'm totally stoked that I stopped when I did. I don't know why I'm thinking it was 10 years ago. It wasn't. It's coming up on 9 years this year, but I had 10 years in my head. I don't know what that was. Maybe that's cigarettes. But I'm happy that I stopped when I was 46. So I'm 56 next year. And I don't know where I would have been if I hadn't stopped, but I don't have to think that now. So that's a good thing. Culture is a big influence. As a dad, the biggest influence you're going to have as a parent is when your kids are small, and they're going to, they're like sponges. Once they get older, I think the culture takes over a little bit, and the parents have a smaller impact. But it can still be done. Like I said, I'm delighted that I've been able to do that. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But time is another factor in this. That as a parent, especially as a parent, the clock is ticking. Your clock is ticking anyway in life in general. But time with your kids. I mean, your kids are growing up, and you can't get that time back. So your time with your kids is super important for them. For you, when you're messed up, when you're screwed up in your mind, when you're intoxicated, you can't be the best possible dad that you want to be. Is this something that you want to settle for? I wish somebody had told me this when my son was born. That life was about choices and trade-offs. And that if I made the choice to drink, that I had to trade off this with my kid. And this is not just over a lifetime. You have to look at this from the perspective of even one session of drinking. So play that tape over in your head and just say that you've had a few drinks on one night, and you go to bed and you don't sleep well. You don't get a great night's sleep. So it's reducing your capacity to think on the night when you're drinking. It's reducing your capacity to sleep well. You wake up in the morning, you're feeling a bit more tired than you would normally do. You've got a little less focus than you would normally have. Your concentration levels are down a bit. Your drive to get things done is a little bit off. It slightly affects everything that you do. Slightly. And that's just one day. So it slightly affects how you interact with other people, because you're not able to give your full self, to your kids, to your wife, to your husband, or whatever it is, right? Now think about that as a compounding effect of day after day after day after day after day. There's this the butterfly effect, the chaos theory, where it's sensitive dependence on initial conditions. So one small change results in a large difference in a later state. So in other words, a tornado caused by a small disturbance of a butterfly's wings. I think that's the way they do it. So a butterfly flaps its wings in somewhere in China, and a few weeks later on the other side of the world there's a hurricane. So to think about it like that, think about what that compounding effect is over many years, and how that affects not only the way you think about things, but how you interact with other people, especially your kids. I'm talking especially to dads, because that's where I'm coming from, or parents. Very similar thing. I think mum and dads. And the third thing is just as being a role model. I mean, you're the first role model, that your kid's going to have. For me, I was focused on trying to teach my kid how to be a man, right? All the external shit, all the, go out and play. And, and it was one of those things. I taught my kid how to read. I taught him how to write at an early age. So, I did those things right. When I was there, and I was sometimes when I had a couple of beers, but most of the time when I didn't, I played with him, and we had great fun as a kid, I miss him as a kid, him now as my son. He's my favorite person in the world. When he hurts, I hurt, that kind of thing. But like I said, it's my biggest regret in life that I didn't stop when he was born. And I understand that coulda, shoulda, woulda, that you can't do anything about that. You can't go back and you can't change those things. You can't could have done something. You can only do something now. So all I can do now is to help other people to think about the things that I wish somebody had said to me. Like I said, my dad used to say to me, watch your liver, be careful of your health, be careful of this, and he never said to me, and he didn't know to say it to me. That's the point. He didn't know to say to me, watch what you're teaching your kid, because he never looked at alcohol in that way until I stopped drinking. I taught my dad something, which was, I'm grateful for as well. Kids can also see through that hypocrisy. The hypocrisy doesn't work on kids. It smells, they can smell it a mile away. When you talk about the dangers of drugs, and I think it's a conversation that most parents have with their kids at some stage. Watch out for that guy, watch out for this, or, when I grew up, when I was a teenager, I was petrified of heroin. Imagine if that same logic was applied to alcohol or anything else like this, any other toxins that are causing shit to happen inside of your body, I think especially as a parent, you've got to earn the right to be heard, especially with when your kids are growing older, it's that kind of thing where, they're listening to what you're saying, they're judging you, but not from on a judging point of view from a bad way, but they're sort of weighing up what you're saying with other things that they're listening to. So, again, hindsight, when you're looking at hindsight, we talked about that earlier on, having that hindsight and looking back at your life and what you could have done, that can be a terrible burden when you look back and you think to yourself, what was I thinking, every parent looks at, it's a thing that every parent does, I think. It looks back at what might have been or what I could have done differently or that kind of thing. But this is a biggie. For me, anyway, it was just a huge thing. It was a realization that sort of floored me. It was like getting a kick in the stomach that I had. Look, it's the culture that causes a lot of it, and it's the culture that is responsible for a lot of it. But at the end of the day, you have to say, well, I had to say that this was something that I had contributed to at the very least. So, but like I said, I'm glad I stopped when I did. I'm glad I stopped when I was 46. And my goal is not only to get to the best possible version. We've got a postman now, so the dogs are not only to get to the best possible version of myself in the best possible life that I can live, but I think about things from the perspective of what I call the great-grandfather legacy. So it's, what can I do now if I think along the perspective of I am influencing not only my son, but my grandchild and my great-grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren. If I was influencing those, or if I had the possibility of influencing those people in my life, long after I'm gone, right? I'm not on this planet forever. None of us are, but your influence does. A lot of people talk about handing down huge chunks of money or houses or whatever it is. The handing down things to the children. It's a lot better off if you can hand down good psychologies, a good psychological makeup to your kids, and they hand that down to their kids, because they're going to have a much better life. And I think that, you know, you can start now by being that person and being the, you know, where you cut off you stop the traditions of what used to be, and you start your own traditions from now on. And this is, you know, that's my aim anyway, is to be that person in my own life. You know, we're gonna leave it there for today. If you haven't subscribed already, then please subscribe. We just talked about today the benefits of drinking versus the benefits of not drinking. We talked about the two benefits of memory and how alcohol affects you in the short term, long term, and how there was a lot of benefits to not drinking alcohol in terms of your memory. And then just, you know, I think my favorite subject, if I could do all my videos on this, on how to help dads or parents to stop drinking alcohol and not pass it on to the next generation, or not try and mitigate that as much as possible, then I would do that. So listen, thanks for watching today. I appreciate those who've stuck around. I appreciate Dan and BM. Thanks very much for joining, and I'll speak to you again soon. So take care of yourself. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.